Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the GallowgateShots YouTube and podcast channel. And we are back yet again with another video this week. It seems like they're non-stop. We have another match preview for the West Ham game on Sunday. I'm Scott. I am your host for this one. And this week, I'm joined by Daryl, Andy, and Matty. Matty, mate.
Yes.
Have you got over the exploits of Wednesday night yet? Will you ever get over the exploits of Wednesday night?
I haven't accepted it as a reality yet, Scott. That's the stage I'm at. I woke up on Thursday morning with a bleary head. I didn't even go out. I didn't go like crazy. I'm one of those ones who, like, as much as I enjoy being around my mates when we've won, I like to sort of just like quietly digest it and like look through the replays and the pictures and wait for the squad photo. I don't, as much as I've been in Wonder Bar and places like that, like, and it is fun at the time, like, I don't really seek it out. I just try to just sit, have a few pints, and that's what I did. I had a couple of pints of Guinness in a quiet pub, and then I had a few more cans, and then more cans when I got home, and then I woke up the next day and my head was hurting, and I was a bit like, oh, I want to go back to sleep. But then that result just clicked into my head, and I thought, well, that's bullshit. You've had a dream, and you're still dreaming, and that's all it's been like the last couple of days. Like, just everything. This is when social media is great, because you're seeing all these angles, fan videos, pictures, just things that you didn't see at the time. And for me, not to go too crazy, but like, I'm 33 years old. I've supported Newcastle since I could comprehend football, and that for me is probably the most special night I've ever had at St. James's Park.
It certainly was. Yeah, I don't think anybody. I'm still lost for words, if I'm being honest with you. If you haven't seen the match preview that myself, Daryl, and Ian did, it's a mess, by the way. Like, we haven't got our minds put together at all. But go and give it a watch. We do go through, but yeah, Daryl's in tears pretty much through the whole thing. I cannot get my words out, and Ian's Wi-Fi is quite literally in the bin. As we found out today, but that's another story. Any chatter. Andy, mate, how are you doing?
Same. I don't think I can sum it up better than that. I also quietly digested it on my 2-hour bus journey home, which got stuck in traffic, but it was still the best bus journey back ever. Had a massive mixed doner chicken wrap, which was consumed in about 20 seconds because the blood was pumping so quickly. Watched the highlights about 300 times.
That was just in the chicken he was eating.
Yeah, exactly what he said. I can't sum it up better than that. It feels surreal. We've got the official Champions League account tweeting about Blythe. It's just absolutely surreal. It's probably, I echo it completely. Probably the best day I've ever had at St. James's Park, and we've had some belters. And I think we've obviously, people talked about Barcelona and things like that before this game. That was maybe when the team was on a bit of a decline. This just feels like the start of something amazing. Yeah. We've had a few of these dawns with the new owners, but this really feels like we've planted our flag in the sand, and we are massive and we are class. Just for us to lose to West Ham at the weekend.
He said it. Why he said it?
No. Daryl, mate, I've already spoke to you, Daryl, in the match reaction, but obviously yesterday was a completely different story. How are you now? Have you calmed down? Have the tears stopped?
The tears have stopped, yeah, but I think it's weird because the one thing I was doing at lunchtime today was just watching the first goal on repeat, simply for the pop of the crowd celebrating, because it was just so loud, and it was like an explosion of noise. And I think I had that on a loop for about 10 minutes, just watching that over and over again, just to hear that noise. It's like Matty says, it's still hard to sink it in, and it still doesn't feel real for some reason. And it's, but no, look, we've got to put it behind. We've got West Ham to deal with on Sunday, and we've just got to plow on. We can enjoy it next week.
He said it doesn't feel real. One thing that is very, very real, and is always real on this show, is this week's sponsor. The GallowgateShots match preview is brought to you by Magpin. Magpin are the go-to site for high-quality, unofficial enamel pin badges of Newcastle United players, legends and retro kits. For more information, visit their website at magpinbadges.bigcartel.com. Seamless, that. Did you like that?
That was maybe, you took the word right out of my mouth.
Right, let's get down to business. This Sunday, the 8th of October, I don't even know the date. we travel down to the London Stadium where we will face West Ham United. It's not on UK TV, unfortunately. Obviously, you'll probably get a stream somewhere, I would have thought, but we don't condone that sort of thing on the channel. We do stream it, do whatever you want. It's on. It should be on anyway. I mean, it should be on every game should be on accessible, but that's another story. 2:00 kickoff for those of you in the UK. Daryl, mate, you are making the way down there. Have you packed your sandwiches yet, or are you making them on Saturday night?
I'm going to make them on Saturday night, and I'm going to pick up my beers for the train because I'm going to specifically try and race. So I'm going to meet my mate who's a West Ham fan, and we have a bit of a race where we have to drink a can between leaving St Pancras and arriving at Stratford. Now, normally you would think, well, why? Because that takes forever. It doesn't. It takes 5 minutes. I've got 5 minutes to neck a can from St Pancras to Stratford, and we normally beat it very easily.
I have faith in you, Daryl.
It'll happen. So I'm going to pick those beers
have that done
on
before
arrival.
the train pulls out of the station, mate.
Well, I've got some birthday beers to drink, so I'll be taking them with us for the journey to London. And so I'll be picking up some extra supplies when we arrive into London to race the javelin to Stratford. But yeah, all ready to go. Just need to get there now.
Mm-hmm. Well, West Ham aren't doing too bad this season, actually. It's a different West Ham, I think, from what we saw last year. They seem to have taken that, what was it, the Europa Conference League that they won, the confidence off that, and they're running with it. They're currently in 7th, 13 points, 4 wins, 1 draw, and 2 defeats. And let's be honest, their 2 defeats were against Man City and Liverpool. So, I mean, you pretty much expect most teams to fall to those two, if not all. One thing, though, Andy, they have only kept 1 clean sheet this season, but they have looked pretty solid defensively. You've been taking a look at some of their new signings. One player that, I'm sure you're going to talk about was Alvarez, who's pretty much helped solidify that back four.
Yeah, obviously the main thing with West Ham all the way through their season last season was everyone knew Rice was going. When they were in that Europa Conference final, everyone knew it was Rice's last game, and they made that pretty obvious. And it was always going to be about, can they replace him? And what they've done quite sensibly is they've replaced Rice with different players, not just one player. So they've sort of replaced his defensive solidity with Edson Alvarez. They've replaced that running ability with Paqueta the window before, and they just look like a better team almost without him. It's strange. I think they obviously had a really, really rough start to the season last year, and I think people had them tipped to go down. But Moisey just turns it round for them, and he seems to be Mr. West Ham. So really like what West Ham are doing. It's obviously great to see one of the sort of traditional big boys, and I mean that in the sort of pre-Premier League big boys, doing really well. They've got dangerous players all over the pitch, which I know we'll get into. But yeah, they've recruited really well. Ward-Prowse, obviously an amazing signing, and they've managed to keep players as well. They managed to keep Jared Bowen, who he's got in the England squad, but I don't know whether he'll actually do much because Southgate doesn't like playing his players who should actually be playing. That's another video in itself. Sean Longstaff.
Yes, it is.
But they've got threats all across the pitch. I think they've got set piece threat, which I know Matty will go into with Ward-Prowse. They've got lots of big lads up there. Only defeats were Liverpool and City, and I believe they're on the longest unbeaten European run in history for an English team.
17 games, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, which is pretty incredible, really. So if they go all the way through the Conference League and then all the way through the Europa League, they could then go all the way through the Champions League the next season. How unbelievable would that be? But yeah, they look like a really good team. It's definitely a test for us, especially away from home. So it should be a good one.
Yeah, as Andy said, Matty, they have made a couple of good signs, and one of them is James Ward-Prowse, and you wanted to shine a little spotlight on him and what he's doing to this team.
I mean, if anything, it's not even a shine a spotlight on it. Really, it's more of a confession myself through my own footballing opinion. Because, like James Ward-Prowse, don't get me wrong. I mean, how many times did he play for Southampton? I mean, we're looking 200, 300 odd times or whatever it was. Because he was, you thought at the time that he was going to be a one club man, as we see a lot happening. But like, obviously, the go down. He's went to West Ham, but I can remember when people were saying we should be looking at him, other top teams should be looking at him, and I thought he was a tidy player, and I understood why he was in the England squads and stuff like that. But I really thought that his set piece ability overinflated the opinions of people. Now he's set pieces are fantastic, and they shouldn't be underrated. I just thought because of he scored a lot of free kicks, he's seen as this great player. That I think he's just a good player. And I even used the words, which I don't like to. I used the word overrated when West Ham signed him. And I know he's only played 6 games in the league this season. He's played in Europe, but he's got 6 assists so far and 2 goals. And just watching him play, he's really make me eat my words. I know you could probably say that if you just watched him properly when he played for Southampton, you should be coming to that conclusion. And I did watch him play a lot for Southampton, but there was games I saw him play, and I thought he was a bit anonymous, but he really has made me eat my words. And I just think that he's a player that has hit the ground running at his what's the best way of putting this? It's his second team, but it's his first ever different team. And for a player that is coming from being a youth player and playing 340 odd times for his team to then move, it must be really hard to sort of acclimatize when you've been used to that environment so long. So for him to do that, play well, like I say, hit the ground running, I've just got a lot of respect for him. I think he's a really good player, and he's made me some words. So he's not going to be watching this, I'm sure. If he is, what the hell are you doing, James Ward-Prowse? Become a member. That's what I mean. Like
Telegram group.
Have you watched the Stinky Fish video yet? But he's just fair play to James Ward-Prowse. And as much as we've got that height and power in the team still, even with the injuries, we've got Dan Burn, we've got Cher, we've got Lascelles, even Trippier's good in the air. We should be wary of those set pieces, definitely.
Do you think it's a case, Matty, if you put better players around him and he becomes a better player in himself? And do you think that's maybe what's happened with West Ham? Like, he's always had it. He just hasn't had the players to bounce off.
I mean, that's a theory, I think. It's a theory I buy into, and I also, in same parts, don't, because any player's better with better players around them, you know. But I know what you mean. Yeah. I mean, for me, like being the main man, sort of microcosm, like Tonali, that first half of the City game, and then Bruno comes on and he looks a miles better player because he's not having to run all over the place. But I digress. Yeah, maybe so. But I mean, those players were there last season, and they went. I mean, apart from Alvarez, and they weren't doing very well. So maybe he lifts up the players around him. I'm not too sure. He was captain at Southampton, and I think he's a leader. So I just think he's a player that West Ham have done really well to get hold of, and he certainly changed my opinion with even just in these early parts of the season.
Yeah, they've been interesting to watch this season, West Ham, and like I mentioned, totally different team in the league to what we saw last season, Daryl. Obviously, the last time we played West Ham at the London Stadium was I think everyone. I don't think anyone was expecting the scoreline that we got, but I think a lot of people were expecting the win just because of the bad run West Ham were on.
Yeah, and at that point as well, we were on a pretty decent run ourselves. Having, it came a few weeks after the cup final, and then we had that loss at Man City, and then that sort of sparked as a catalyst for a little run that we went on at that point. So it takes us back to April of this year, and it was one of those things where, and we'll get onto it later as well when we come to our potential lineups. And you have to look at, it's almost written in the stars. And my mate Jamie, who I mentioned earlier, he was straight onto this when I spoke to him back then in the lead up to the game. He does it every game, in fairness, that we play against West Ham, and it's about Callum Wilson. But yeah, so we ran out 5-1 winners in that game back in April, and like you said, Scott, to the surprise of quite a few. I mean, like you say, the win, you probably could have banked on the win happening because of each team's form at that point. But because it was such an emphatic win and the manner of which it was achieved, really put a lot of people, it really gave people a bit of a surprise. I mean, we go into that game 2-1 up at half time after goals from Wilson, Joe Linton, and then Kurt Zouma pulled one back with loads of inflatable cats in the away end doing their thing at that point. And I think if you remember rightly, Eddie Howe spent large portions of that first half on the touchline absolutely enraged at what was going on in front of his eyes. And I think it took a good stern talking to at half time to sort everything out. And unfortunately for me and Shell, who was with me at the time, we missed the third goal because it came so soon after half time. And we were still having our pint inside. And that was Wilson's second of the game. And that is the thing about West Ham and Callum Wilson. He absolutely loves a goal against West Ham. I think he's pretty much scored every game that they've played against, that he's played against West Ham, he's got a goal. And then Isak, I'll try and set the scene for you as I remember. It's Isak, ball's played forward to Fabianski, who tries to make a clearance, doesn't go very well, falls to Isak, who just takes it down, lobs it over him into the back of the net. And that made it 4-1. And then it was rounded off by Joe Linton getting a second right at the death in 90 minutes. And I have to go back to Joe Linton's first, which was our second of the game. And I have to pay homage to, I think it was Fabian Schär played an absolutely astounding through ball.
VAR as well.
It was VAR checked
offside,
as well,
wasn't it?
They had to check it for that, but it was such a brilliantly timed run from Joe Linton. And the ball that created that was absolutely sublime. And it was such a great move. And it really did put us in a good state of affairs at that point, because that was game 4 or 5 of a 5-game winning streak. And I think in that streak as well, I think we only lost 1 in 9. So that really set us up for that push towards the top 4.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that Joe Linton goal, because one thing that I've noticed with West Ham this season is that they're a hard team to break down now. They seem to be a lot more compact. They don't apply any pressure into the back 4 of their opponents at all. They almost wait for the ball to get into their final third, and they just like compress into almost like a back 5, back 6, and then you've got Alvarez leading that front that line. And then they kind of rely on, winning the ball, and you've got Paqueta and Bowen who can break on the counter-attack. Obviously, they've got other players as well, like Ward Prowse, who can run with it as well. One little weakness that I think they may still be struggling from is when players get to in and around the box. Obviously, they're subjectable to a long shot, which, if Miggy Almiron is in any form that he was in on Wednesday night, or Fabian Schär, we could be in for some success there. And obviously, Trippier and Tonali can also hit them from distance. But also, I saw against, I think it was the Man City game, ball over the top, like from the maybe just at the 12-yard line, ball over the top of the defenders with a player run in, which could suit Isak down to the ground as well if he's playing. But that ball has to be pinpoint, because they've got 2 tall defenders. They've got Zuma, and I can't remember the other centre back that they've got.
Yeah.
Another summer acquisition, is he not? He's another one of the summer.
Yeah. But they're good at just mopping up those loose balls and just getting rid, which that then starts their counter attack. They do have one injury. It's Aaron Cresswell. I think he's been out for a little while. I don't think it's really going to impact them too much. But one thing, Andy, I will talk about. Obviously, we played on the Wednesday. West Ham have played on the Thursday, and I believe theirs was an away trip as well. There's going to be a lot of tired legs, I think, on both sides. But does the extra day plus the no need for travel, play in our favour at all? Or do you think that's not a sort of thing anymore in this day and age of sports scientists and all that?
Well, in theory, it should. What I would say is I think the Newcastle players have ran the distance to Freiburg and back on Wednesday anyway, with the amount of running they did, so probably not. I think one thing that works in West Ham's favour is that they did Thursday, Sunday all of last season, and they know what they're doing, and they have got extra numbers now. And on the injury front, definitely in a better position than we are. It's one of these things where you don't know what West Ham's recovery is like. You don't really know what our recovery is like with the weekend game. I know West Ham have got lots of fit players. That Paqueta weirdly has played more minutes than anyone for West Ham, which is quite unusual for a more of a flair player. Souček never gets, he's always playing 90 minutes. You've got Soufal, who's really good as well. There's lots of fit players there, so I think they'll be all right. But there will be tired legs, and I think both managers will just hope that it's not too intense. Well, obviously with how it's always intense, but you almost want just to have a nice sort of relaxing game, just to make sure you don't get any injuries and things like that. But we know in the Premier League that's not possible, so I'm sure we'll get onto it. But we'll have to see some rotation from our guys, certainly in midfield. I mean, the amount of miles those lads put in is just outrageous. I don't think we'll necessarily change the back 4. I think that's too set in stone, and I think the recovery, it's maybe a bit easier in the back 4, not as much mileage to do. But yeah, we'll have to see. Obviously, where West Ham play is more conducive to playing more fixtures, because you can rest the legs a bit. When you're out of possession, you can just sit off and wait, whereas when we're not in possession, we do more running than when we have the ball. So be interesting to see. But Howe's been with these guys for a while now. They should all be up to speed. They know what's expected of them, so let's see.
Yeah, well, we'll turn our attention to Newcastle, and obviously there is a slightly concerning injury list starting to grow at Newcastle. Obviously, we know about the long terms with Barnes and Willock, and I think Eddie Howe today ruled out Botman completely from the game. And it's nice. This one, we actually are doing this after an Eddie Howe press conference. We normally say, we're not before this, but we kind of got an idea. And Daryl, Wilson, and Joe Linton are late checks. Obviously, you've already mentioned Wilson likes a goal against West Ham. We thought we might have saw Wilson on the bench against PSG. Do you think it might be the case of Wilson starts against West Ham, or Wilson makes the bench and Isak gets maybe 60 minutes based off, playing a full 90 in the midweek?
Yeah, I think it could well be the latter, like you just said this. I think it could be a case of Wilson being able to come off the bench so long as he's got some fitness in him. Joe Linton, I think he would like to have him available for the squad, but to me, given the nature of his injury, I'd rather he just rested him if he can afford to and just let him have that international break just to fully recover and make sure he's fit and ready for the running after that. Because let's not forget that the running after this next international break is going to be just as important as the one that we've just had. And yeah, part of me thinks that if Wilson was fully fit, then I would be tempted to start him to give Isak the rest. But it's a tough one to call. But yeah, definitely for me, I think start Isak and give him that first hour. I think the other problem becomes in midfield as well, with how he rotates that and whether or not you see Elliot Anderson come in from the start, or even if you see Jacob Murphy, because we have to remember that Anthony Gordon's not going to be able to feature at all because of his suspension.
I think they're your two changes, personally. I think that, I mean, not to skip ahead, but I'm like really think that's you shoot your two changes. Anderson comes in for Tonali, and Murphy comes in for Anthony Gordon. Yeah, and that's it.
It's a sensible change to make.
It's 100% sensible, but I just think that like it's indicative of the state the squad's in. Because you'd think if you had those players available, you Harvey Barnes, you Sven Botmans, Callum Wilson, Joe Willock, Joe Linton. That's 5 massive players, like ridiculously massive. And not to say they should all be starting. I'm just saying that, like, Joe Willock, like we haven't seen him yet, and he was so important for us last season. Joe Linton's huge. Sven Botman's one of the best centre halves we've ever had.
Literally huge.
Yeah, literally huge. Literally huge. A lot of these lads are, but like, and Harvey Barnes, we know what he can do in that short space of time. He showed, and sorry, not interject, but like,
no, of course,
but like, with what's going on, it really is a case of getting over this line into the international break now.
Yeah,
because we've got so many injuries, and I'm thinking of Eddie Howe, what he said today. I really don't think Wilson or Joe Linton are going to be available. So I think you're going to have lads running in mud for a lot of this game, and it's going to be tough. But I did think that about Wednesday night. That's why I was so worried about it.
Yeah, it's maybe a bit of a blessing in disguise that we haven't had international players called up, because they can just chill out for a week.
Yeah,
I mean, we've had Trippier, and Dubravka's obviously going probably. But I mean, in terms of main players, is it just Trippier and Shearer? I guess it's and
did Isak get a call up?
I just want Longstaff to be able to lie down, the poor lad. He does like 5,000 miles a game.
I think he's one of those freaks, though, isn't he? He's going to be one of those freaks who can just do it and not really. I'm going to touch wood there, because like if he gets injured, God. Anyway, sorry.
Well, obviously, one of the things I was going to touch on was with Kieran Trippier. Obviously, he's played a lot of minutes, and we all said at the start of this that we brought in Tino Livramento because we can't be expecting Trippier to play every game with midweek. Is this the sort of game that, and I'll stick with you, Matty, on this one, if there wasn't an international break, do you think that change would have been made for this West Ham game where, Tino Livramento comes in and replace Kieran Trippier just to give him a little bit of a rest for what's to come? Obviously, he is going to go away to England. Maybe that's in the back of his mind as well, that, whether he gets minutes or not for England is obviously another question. But if he's probably going to be playing on the left. Who knows how Southgate's going to use him. But would you be tempted, or would you think Howe would be tempted to rest him this week in retrospect of there not being an international break?
It's so hard to say, isn't it? Because I mean, that game against City, the game against City with Trippier, I think was his first game he didn't start for a ridiculous amount of time in the League Cup. That guy is obviously one of these freaks who can just play football 2 times a week at an elite level, and he's just fit as they come. That being said, though, we bought, like you said, you bought Livramento for a reason, and that's to cover him. And he's not just any old cover. He's, a really good prospect. We saw that against Manchester City. Personally, I think he'll definitely still play Trippier. I think he won't play Livramento until his hand's forced. I think that he was hoping for a more favourable draw in the League Cup over the first two games to be able to blood Lewis Hall and Livramento. That being said, I fully expect both of them players to start at Old Trafford, not to get ahead of ourselves. But yeah, it is a funny one. And it's strange because you think about professional footballers, and they were talking about this the other day in a couple of podcasts I was listening to about schedules and about the money they get paid and why they should really be like having a go at the schedule. It's like you're getting paid a king's ransom every week. Like just go out there and play. But that's one half of the argument, and it's one I lean towards. But the other half is with today's sports science, I totally get why players need rests, because we have these analytics where it's like they can be this good for this long, but then as soon as they play a bit more, they're a bit less. And of course, I've got my football manager head on. I've got the percentages in my head. I'm thinking, Trippier's probably at like 83. But do we
vice train, reload?
yeah. Longstaff's looking a bit orange there. He's looking a bit orange. But yeah, it's going to be. And I know we do our predictions at the end, and I'm not going to say my prediction, but all I'm saying is like to not lose this game would be huge. I think to not lose this game to go into this international break would be huge, because we have been just tortured with injuries and fitness. And I thought at the end of that Burnley game, it was great. Mint, we've beat Burnley 2-0. Didn't even get out of second gear. But you looked around the pitch at full time and there was lads on the haunches, lads sort of knackered. Bruno's limping about, and you think, how long are we going to be able to stretch this with the players that we've got long-term injuries for? And that's what worries me. But hey ho. But yes, to answer your question, I think Trippier's going to start.
Awesome. Well, you said you weren't going to say a prediction, but we will come to our predictions now.
Okay.
I'll not come to you first, though, Matty. I'll let somebody else have the floor for a little bit. Daryl, mate, predictions for this one. What are you going for?
Well, just as Matty was talking there, I was trying to talk myself out of saying a Newcastle win for some reason, and I think it was just because I like Matty, though. I just want to not come through this game with a loss. I want us to get a result, and I want us to also come through rather unscathed as well on the health front. I don't want to get anything else to go wrong or anyone else on that treatment table, because it's full enough as it is. And I was really hovering between a 2-1 win and a 1-1 draw. And I'm just going to play for the 2-1 win. I don't care. 2-1. 2-1 Newcastle. Come on, I'm going down. I need to see it.
Love it.
Andy, mate, what are you going for?
I was about to say, we cannot beat PSG 4-1 and then predict anything other than a win. Like, come on. I appreciate all your points. I think they're all very sensible things to say. I don't want, like, come on. We've just smashed.
I appreciate
PSG.
everything
going
you say,
hard
lads.
overhead here.
How? No, I do agree that it's one of those where, you know, there will be a massive come down, there will be fatigue and everything like that. One thing, you know, we will definitely have is laser focus from Howe and his backroom staff. They'll have had a little bit of a celebration, but you know what Howe's like? He could win 3 Champions Leagues in a row and just be thinking, well, we're just thinking about pre-season now. That's how he is. Hopefully for us. Hopefully for us. But the point I'm making is that we know that as soon as that celebration was done, he was like, right, lads, back to the Premier League, because nights like that, we're not going to get them next year if we don't qualify for it next year. Unless we obviously win the Champions League, then we get it. But that's another point. But it has to be the focus now has to just be right. Premier League, do the business, back to basics. So yeah, I take all the points. I don't think it'll be as easy as last season, but I think similar. I think 2-1. I think we'll be maybe a little bit fatigued and we might not be as good on the press, which means we might be some gaps. But I think on the back of that PSG game, I cannot say anything other than a win. So 2-1, and we'll go Wilson, because he said on his podcast if he scores, he's going to do the Carlton. So let's see that.
I don't think he's even going to be playing, you know. I don't even think he's going to be there. But this is me being all negative.
He was in training.
I'm manifesting it.
At the end of the week. Yeah. Well, I'll give you my prediction, and then we'll come to you, Matty, for yours to finish up. And do you know what? I'm of the mindset that the way that the way that West Ham are playing at the minute, the way that they don't have much possession, quite hard to break down. We'll be, tired legs. They'll be tired legs. This has got 0-0 written all over it for me, and I think that's what it'll be.
Bloody hell!
And I'll take it.
It better not be.
Enjoy the game.
Do you know what? I think both teams would accept that at this point in the season, given where they're at, what they're doing, and what else they've got going on. I think a 0-0 draw is probably, not the right result. Obviously, I want Newcastle to win, but I think if you asked Eddie Howe, would you take 0-0 and no injuries, he'd rip your hand off for it.
Would you take 0-0 in the away end, Daryl?
Oh, depends. It depends.
Clean sheet.
Well, yeah.
Clean sheet,
but,
yeah. Get back on that.
Sorry.
I think it's one of these ones. We have these last 2-3 weeks. These last 2-3 weeks have been amazing. Personally, I've thought they were amazing. Like, just even starting with that win at Brentford, first win of the season. Sorry, second win of the season after 3 losses. Bang, sorted. And then you move on to your first Champions League game. You get an amazing point, class, clean sheet. I'm not trying to go through the last 3 weeks just to remind people of it, but it has been so good. And there's been some quality performances in there as well. But it's just that squad depth and fitness that really worries me. I know West Ham are playing in Europe, and I know that they're sort of having to deal with it as well, but I don't think they've got as many injuries as us. Just looking at their squad, they've got a quality spine. We talked about Aguirre, who actually came last summer, by the way, not this summer just gone. But I just feel like at the London Stadium, I think they're going to score the first goal. I think West Ham are definitely going to score the first goal, and it's how we react. I'm going to go 1-1. I think, and if we went 1-1, if we went 1-0 down and equalised, and then that was it. Andy, stop shaking your head.
Me and Daryl next week.
You know what? I know. I've said this a million times as well. And I'm going to try and stop saying it, but pessimism isn't my gimmick. I'm not. This isn't me trying to be carried. He's yeah. But I'm still coming to terms with the fact that we are a good team now. Before the PSG game, I read out the starting lineup to my father, and I just said, do you know what? Even with the injuries, that's a mint side. That I still think we're mint there. But what, we're going to get beat now, and we didn't. And we had an amazing night, and we still reveling in it.
We didn't because we spoke before the game.
Sorry, mate.
We didn't lose because we spoke before the game, which we have a 100% record doing that.
Yes. Me and Andy have bumped into each other in the Leazes End at the bar twice this season, and we've won 5-1 and 4-1 . So
there you go.
But we can't force it, Andy. We need to make sure we just
keep it natural.
Yeah, keep it natural. Otherwise, the gods won't like it. But after that PSG game, I bumped into a fan of the podcast, funny enough. I'd never met this gentleman before. I think his name was Lockie. I hope I've got that right. If he's watching, Lockie, and he grabbed me, and I thought he'd called Anthony Gordon the S word when actually he was actually calling Kylian Mbappe an S version of Anthony Gordon. And when I asked him what he said, "Bloody hell, I know you're negative on that podcast, but that's not me." And I just thought, oh my God, as if I've perpetuated this idea that I'm this negative. But I'm trying to be positive. I'm trying to get used to us being good and all this stuff. But I just think the stretch squad and West Ham doing as well as they are, I just think it's going to be really, really tough. And if they score the first goal, you'd snap your hand off for a point. If someone offered me it now, I'd take it, because I just think it'd just be a nice way to end it. Obviously, 3 points would be better. But I think for me, just the whole thing is just to not lose. And I know that sounds negative, but it is what it is. To just not lose and to go from Brentford a few weeks ago and the 2 Champions League games sandwiched in between the league games and an 8-0 win and a 2-0 win against Burnley, to get to here and go away to a really good West Ham side. It wouldn't be a nightmare if we drew, and it'd be amazing if we won. But I just have this feeling that we're really flogging the hell out of these lads with the injuries. And let's see. They're professional athletes after all. So maybe they're going to really surprise me. But no Anthony Gordon is huge.
Yeah. That's obviously the big thing, because he has, without question being our best player this season. I think, you know, he's leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of the players out there, but they're all up there as well. But he is just, you know, it's more than just a nose in front, but you know, it's I kind of wish the international break was this week, and then we've got that little bit of rest to go into this. But then you've also got momentum, which will break from there. So we'll see what happens. What do you think at home watching this? Do you think we're talking a load of trollop with our predictions? Let us know in the comments below. Andy's going to go straight down to the comments and let us know.
Can I say one thing before we sign off? And I know I've just talked a lot there, and there's probably people listening to this or watching this going, well, that divvy from Teesside, stop talking. But like, I just feel like this, no matter the result, right now or tomorrow or whenever you listen to this before the game, is a like massive point to really take stock and do a checkpoint, if you will. Yeah. You know what I mean? If you're planning the Souls games or any sort of video game, just take a checkpoint, take stock, and be like, class, this is mint. We had a really bad patch where everyone was talking, not everyone, but the idiots were talking rubbish. And then we've went on this unbelievable little patch of continental results. 0-0 at San Siro, 4-1 against PSG, 2-0 Brentford, 3-0 Burnley, 8-0 Sheffield United. How are you guys? Like, it's class, and we know that ability is in that team. So if we lose on Sunday, and I'm not saying we will,
don't melt down, Christ.
Just what do you do if you turn around and start banging on about Miggy Almiron and Dan Bear not being good enough? Ah, God, I don't know what to say. Just go home, go outside, smell grass, sniff the air in, and just what's wrong with you? Like, I know they're not world-class footballers, but bloody hell, they've just both scored against PSG, and one of them scored an absolute worldie to get us 3 points against Burnley at home. Chill out, man. Like, if we get beat on Sunday, it's not the end of the world. We know it's all good, and we're missing 5 or 6 players, but we might not lose, and we might get a very good point, or bloody hell, a really good 3 points. But just take stock, soak it in, just realize that this is, and people get annoyed when you say, look where we were 2 years ago. You're allowed to criticize the team, but do it fairly, you weirdos.
Well said, that man.
Well, if any of you weirdos watching like this video, scroll down from it and hit the subscribe button. Hit the thumbs
Imagine if like all the subscriptions went down now. I'm a weirdo.
Just be us 4.
Yeah.
And if you're not a weirdo, stay subscribed.
Yes, please
yeah,
do.
no, but if you do like this, obviously hit the thumbs up. Hit the notification bell to be notified of new videos, and hit the subscribe button. Let us know in the comments below what you think the prediction and the score will be for this game at the weekend. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree? Let us know. If you want to go one step further, we do have a membership program. It's $2.99 a month, and we will happily call you worse than a weirdo in the Telegram chat, because it is a bit weird in there, but it is also outstandingly amazing as well. Boys, I think that's it. I think I've had enough Newcastle for this week until all the Newcastle content comes out from the PSG game. Hopefully tonight, could be tomorrow. We'll record this on Friday. I just want to watch that match calm before the West Ham game, and I'm sure everybody else does. But thanks everyone for watching. Thanks Andy. Thanks Matty. Cheers Daryl.
Cheers boys.
Safe journey down, Daryl, as well.
Cheers, mate, yeah.
Don't drink that pint too quick on that train. You've got 5 minutes. Pace yourself, lad. But we will see you in the next one. Thanks, everyone. Ta-da.
Bye-bye.